The gray smoke lingered above what was once New Geneva, now reduced to a graveyard of twisted metal and concrete. Captain Lyra Coleman squinted through her tactical visor, the augmented display highlighting movement among the ruins. More scavengers, not the enemy. Not yet. Still clear, Captain. Sergeant Morales confirmed through the comm link, his voice a welcome reassurance after hours of radio silence. Perimeter drones report no Averon signatures within 5 kilometers. Lyra nodded, though no one could see her. 6 months of alien invasion had taught her that moments of quiet were merely interludes between nightmares. She descended from her observation post, boots crunching on pulverized debris as she made her way back to their makeshift command center, a half-collapsed subway station reinforced with whatever materials they could salvage. Inside, the remaining members of her unit hunched over maps and terminals. Engineer Ramirez tinkering with their dwindling supply of functional weaponry. Medical Officer Tamara Wells tending to 3 wounded soldiers, and fresh-faced Private Jenkins monitoring communications, his fingers nervously drumming against the console. Status report, Lyra demanded, removing her helmet. Her dark hair fell in matted strands around a face weathered beyond its 32 years. Not good, Captain, Jenkins replied, swallowing hard. General Hawthorne's last transmission confirms what we feared. The Averon command vessel entered Earth orbit approximately 90 minutes ago. Intelligence suggests the warlord himself is aboard. A heavy silence fell over the room. They all knew what this meant. In every theater across the globe, the pattern had been the same. The appearance of the Averon command ship heralded complete annihilation of the defending forces. No exceptions. Omega Stronghold is our final rallying point, Lyra announced, her voice steady despite the hollow feeling in her chest. All remaining combat-capable units are being directed there. We move at nightfall. With all due respect, Captain, Morales said as he entered, dust covering his weathered face. What's the point? We've lost 70% of our global defense forces. The Averon have systematically dismantled our infrastructure, communications, and major weapon systems. This isn't a war anymore. It's an extermination. Lyra met his gaze unflinchingly. As long as humans draw breath, Sergeant, we fight. Have I made myself clear? Crystal, ma'am, he replied, though the resignation in his eyes told a different story. The comm system crackled suddenly, the general's haggard face materializing on the main screen. Static distorted his image, breaking his word, involuntary tightening of her jaw. The classified briefing she'd received months ago, before communications began breaking down, had mentioned Project Vanguard, a top-secret initiative involving enhanced soldiers dispatched on a deep space mission years before the Averon arrived. Those files had been heavily redacted, but one phrase had stood out: humanity's ultimate contingency. They had reportedly vanished during a classified mission at the edge of the solar system. Whether they had been destroyed, captured, or simply lost to the vastness of space, no one seemed to know. Or if they did, that information hadn't been shared with a mere captain. Focus on what's real, Jenkins, Lyra finally said. The comrades beside you, the weapons in your hands, and the enemy ahead. Everything else is just distraction. They reached Omega Stronghold as the first hint of dawn colored the eastern sky. The facility was impressive even in humanity's twilight. Massive reinforced gates, anti-aircraft batteries, and layers of defenses built into the very mountain. As they approached the checkpoint, Lyra could see hundreds of vehicles and thousands of personnel, the consolidated remains of Earth's military might. A grim-faced colonel greeted them at the entrance. Captain Coleman, your unit is one of the last we were expecting. Get your people inside and report to command level. The War Council begins in 30 minutes. The interior of Omega Stronghold buzzed with desperate activity. Engineers reinforcing structures, medics treating the wounded, communications officers attempting to establish contact with any remaining outposts. Despite the activity, Lyra couldn't help but notice the hollow eyes and slumped shoulders of soldiers who understood they were making their last stand. The War Council was held in a cavernous room deep within a mountain. Officers from various nations gathered around a holographic display showing real-time satellite imagery of Earth's orbit. The Averon command ship dominated the projection, a massive crystalline structure surrounded by smaller vessels, all with the distinctive organic-mechanical hybrid architecture that characterized their alien technology. General Hawthorne, now in person rather than a grainy transmission, stood at the head of the table. His weathered face bore the weight of a dying world. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began without preamble, "our situation is dire. The Averon command vessel has established geosynchronous orbit directly above us. Our intelligence suggests they've identified Omega as humanity's final command center. Conservative estimates give us less than 24 hours before they launch their final assault." Murmurs rippled through the assembled officers. A Japanese colonel stood. "What of our remaining orbital defenses?" "Neutralized," the general replied flatly. "Our last kinetic bombardment platform was destroyed 3 hours ago. We're limited to ground-based countermeasures now." "And those will be sufficient against their main force?" asked a Brazilian commander. The general's silence was answer enough. Lyra found herself speaking before she'd consciously decided to do so. "Sir, is there any word on Project Vanguard?" The room went silent. General Hawthorne's eyes narrowed as they fixed on her. "Captain Coleman, that information is classified beyond your clearance level." "With respect, sir," she pressed, aware she was potentially jeopardizing her career. Though in the current circumstances, that seemed a minor concern. "If there's any possibility of additional forces or technologies that could help us, now would be the time to deploy them." The general's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or resignation. "Project Vanguard was deemed a failure," he finally said. "Contact was lost over 18 months ago. They are presumed lost with all hands." The statement felt rehearsed, diplomatic language for a catastrophic loss. Lyra wanted to push further, but recognized she'd already overstepped. As the meeting continued with discussions of defensive positions and ammunition allocation, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was placing its pieces on a chessboard while already in checkmate. The council dispersed with orders to prepare for imminent attack. Lyra was assigned command of the eastern perimeter defenses, a critical position, but one that would likely see the heaviest initial assault. As she left the command center, Sergeant Morales fell into step beside her. "Vanguard," he questioned softly. "You actually believe those stories?" Lyra kept her voice low. "I've seen things in classified briefings, Morales. Things that suggest we had technologies far beyond what's been deployed in this war. Enhanced soldiers, experimental weapons, developments that could have made a difference. Then where the hell are they when we need them?" She had no answer for that. They spent the next hours positioning there. Forces distributing the precious remaining ammunition and establishing fallback positions. The atmosphere throughout the stronghold was tense, but determined. These were professionals who would perform their duty until the end, whatever that might be. As twilight approached, Lyra stood on the defensive wall, scanning the horizon with her binoculars. The mountain valleys stretched before her, deceptively peaceful in the gathering darkness. A young lieutenant approached, saluting crisply. "Captain, we're picking up unusual readings on our long-range scanners. Multiple objects approaching from high orbit, but they don't match known Averon signatures." Lyra's heart rate quickened. "Show me." In the monitoring station, radar operators tracked the anomalous signals, a tight formation of objects descending rapidly through the atmosphere. "Could be debris," suggested one technician. "Too controlled," countered another. "Whatever they are, they're maintaining formation and adjusting trajectory. Definitely powered." "Averon reinforcements?" Morales asked. "Pattern doesn't match," the radar operator replied. "And they're coming in hot, much faster than Averon typically deploy." Suddenly, the general alarm blared throughout the facility. All around them, soldiers rushed to combat positions. "Multiple Averon vessels detected," announced the automated warning system. "Aerial assault imminent. All personnel to battle stations." The timing couldn't be coincidence. Whatever those mysterious objects were, they had triggered the Averon into action. Get everyone in position, Lyra ordered. And keep tracking those unidentified objects. I want to know what they are and where they land. The night sky erupted into chaos. Averon's ships descended like predatory insects, their energy weapons carving glowing paths through the darkness. Omega Stronghold's defense batteries responded in kind, filling the air with anti-aircraft fire. The mountain itself seemed to shudder under the assault. Lyra's unit held position on the eastern wall, firing at Averon ground forces as they emerged from drop ships. The alien soldiers moved with unnerving coordination, their armored forms advancing methodically despite taking casualties. "They're pressing harder on the northern quadrant," shouted Morales over the cacophony of battle. "They're trying to breach the main gate." Lyra activated her tactical comm. "This is Captain Coleman. We need reinforcements at the northern perimeter immediately." "Negative, Captain," came the response. "All reserves are committed. Hold your position as long as possible." A massive explosion rocked the stronghold, sending tremors through the structure. The Averon had brought in heavy artillery, the energy blast slowly but surely degrading the facility's defenses. "We can't hold them much longer," Morales said, his usual stoicism cracking as he reloaded his rifle. 3 of their soldiers lay dead nearby, others wounded but still fighting. Lyra knew he was right. The defensive line was crumbling across all sectors. Reports from other commanders painted the same grim picture. They were being overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. Omega's stronghold, humanity's last stand, would fall before dawn. Then it happened. The night sky, already alight with the exchange of weapons fire, suddenly blazed with new intensity. Streaks of brilliant white light cut through the darkness, creating a display that momentarily paused the battle as both humans and Averon turned their gaze upward. The unidentified objects, the radar operator's voice crackled through Lyra's comm. "They're entering the atmosphere directly above us." The objects, now clearly visible as they punched through the cloud cover, resembled meteors wrapped in plasma sheath, but their trajectory was too precise, too controlled. They streaked toward the battlefield with impossible accuracy, each one targeting a different section of the conflict zone. "Take cover," Lyra shouted, pulling Morales down behind a defensive barrier moments before the first object struck the earth with catastrophic force. The impact sent a shockwave across the battlefield, throwing Averon's soldiers into the air like ragdolls. Then another hit, and another, each impact precisely targeted to devastate the invaders while somehow avoiding human positions. When the dust began to settle, Lyra cautiously peered over the barricade. Where there had been Averon forces, there are now smoking craters. But the craters weren't empty. Within each impact site stood what appeared to be massive metallic pods, their surfaces cooling from the heat of atmospheric entry. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Both human and Averon forces seemed frozen in a moment of collective anticipation. Then, with a hydraulic hiss, the pods began to open. The figures that emerged defied easy description. They were humanoid in basic form, but encased in armor unlike anything Lyra had ever seen, adaptive material that seemed to flow like liquid while maintaining rigid protection. Each warrior stood over 2 meters tall, equipped with weapons that hummed with energy that made the air around them distort. An Averon squad, recovering from their initial shock, redirected their fire toward the nearest of these newcomers. Their energy weapons, which had torn through conventional human armor with ease, splashed harmlessly off the warrior's defenses. The warrior responded with a single shot from a shoulder-mounted weapon. The blast vaporized the entire Averon squad and carved a trench 3 meters deep into the earth behind them. Similar scenes unfolded across the battlefield as more of the armored giants engaged the invaders. Their movements were fluid, almost preternaturally fast, as they cut through the Averon ranks with devastating efficiency. "Captain," whispered Private Jenkins beside her, voice filled with awe, "are those?" "The deadliest warriors," Lyra confirmed, hardly believing her own words. The legends, it seemed, had substance after all. One of the warriors approached their position, the ground trembling slightly with each step. The helmet retracted, revealing a human face, male, mid-30s, with a scar running from temple to jaw. "Captain Lyra Coleman?" he asked, his voice carrying easily over the continuing battle sounds. Lyra stepped forward, still gripping her rifle. "Identify yourself." "Commander Orion Black, 13 Vanguard." He gestured to the battlefield where his comrades were systematically dismantling the Averon assault. "Looks like we arrived just in time." Before Lyra could respond, her tactical display lit up with warnings. "Incoming. Averon heavy assault craft." A massive ship descended through the clouds, its weapons already charging. This was no ordinary vessel. The distinctive crystalline structure and ornate design marked it as a command craft. "The Warlord," Orion said grimly. "He's taking the field personally." The vessel's main cannon fired, the energy beam cutting through Omega Stronghold's upper defenses like paper. Secondary explosions bloomed across the facility's superstructure. "We need to get your people to cover," Orion stated, his helmet flowing back into place. "My team will engage the command ship." "With what?" demanded Morales. "That thing just took out our heaviest defenses with a single shot." In answer, Orion raised his arm. The other warriors across the battlefield mirrored his gesture. From their armor, components detached and reconfigured in midair, assembling into what appeared to be targeting arrays. "Synchronized kinetic strike," Orion explained. "We'll breach their shields, but we'll need your troops to exploit the opening. Can you muster an assault team?" Lyra quickly assessed their situation. Most of her unit was still combat effective, and the arrival of these warriors had revitalized the defenders' spirits. "Give us the signal, and we'll be ready," she confirmed. Orion nodded once, then launched himself skyward, propulsion units in his armor carrying him toward the Averon command ship. The other warriors followed, their armored forms streaking upward like reverse meteors. "Morales, gather our best heavy weapons specialists," Lyra ordered. "Jenkins, coordinate with any other combat-ready units. When those shields come down, we hit them with everything we've got." The battle above was like nothing Lyra had ever witnessed. The warriors engaged the Averon vessel with impossible agility, evading energy blasts while delivering concentrated fire at specific points on the ship's hull. Where conventional weapons had failed to even scratch Averon defenses, their advanced technology began to create visible fractures in the crystalline structure. The ship's defensive systems responded furiously, filling the air with a web of energy beams and explosive countermeasures. Two of the warriors were caught in a crossfire, their armor flaring brilliantly before they plummeted back to Earth. Lyra watched with a mixture of hope and dread. These newcomers were powerful beyond anything humanity had fielded before, but even they weren't invincible against the Averon's full might. "Captain," Jenkins called out, "we're receiving a tight beam transmission from Commander Black." "Patch it through," she ordered. Orion's voice came through her comm, punctuated by the sounds of battle. "Preparing to breach their primary shield generator. Be ready to strike on my mark. Target coordinates uploading to your systems now." Lyra's tactical display updated with a precise location on the Averon vessel's underbelly. "All units, prepare to fire on the designated coordinates. Maximum yield on all remaining missiles and energy weapons." Above, the warriors had formed a precise formation around the Averon ship, their weapons synchronized in a complex pattern. Energy began to coalesce between them, building to an intensity that made Lyra's tactical visor automatically dim. Now came Orion's command. The warriors released their combined energy in a single devastating beam that punched through the Averon shields and into the vessel's hull. A secondary explosion blossomed from within the ship, creating a momentary vulnerability. "Fire everything," Lyra ordered. Omega Stronghold's remaining defenses unleashed their full fury. Missiles, railgun projectiles, and energy beams converged on the breach point. The Averon ship shuddered visibly, listing to one side as internal explosions cascaded through its structure. For a moment, Lyra allowed herself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could end this here, destroy the warlord, and break the Averon's grip on Earth in a single decisive strike. Then the command ship stabilized. The breach sealed with unsettling organic motion, like a wound healing before their eyes. The vessel's weapons realigned, focusing on the mountain fortress with renewed purpose. They're adapting, Orion's voice warned. Changing tactics. The warlord is. His transmission cut off as the Averon ship released a pulse of energy unlike anything they'd seen before. The wave caught several warriors mid-flight, their armor systems flickering and failing. They fell from the sky like shooting stars, impacting the ground with bone-crushing force. The same pulse washed over Omega's stronghold, instantly frying unshielded electronics and sending their defensive systems into reset cycles. Status report, Lyra shouted as emergency lighting bathed the command center in red. Primary systems offline, reported a technician. Auxiliary power at 30%. Weapons systems rebooting. Estimated time to functionality, 3 minutes. We don't have 3 minutes, Morales muttered, pointing to the tactical display. The Averon command ship was descending, landing struts extending from its hull. It was touching down less than a kilometer from their position. Around it, the remaining Averon forces regrouped, forming defensive perimeters. They're deploying ground forces, Lyra observed. Why? With that kind of firepower, they could simply bombard us from orbit. Because they want something, came a voice from the doorway. Orion Black stood there, his armor scorched and damaged, but still functional. Behind him were 3 other warriors in similar condition. The warlord isn't just here to destroy Omega's stronghold, he continued, striding into the command center. He's searching for something buried deep beneath this mountain. What could possibly be here that would interest them? General Hawthorne demanded, approaching from an adjacent room. This facility was built less than a decade ago. The facility, yes, Orion agreed, but it was built over something much older. Something the Averon have been seeking across dozens of worlds. He turned to the tactical display, manipulating the controls to show a 3-dimensional scan of the mountain. Your engineers must have detected unusual energy readings during construction. Probably dismissed them as natural geological phenomena. The display zoomed in, revealing a chamber deep within the mountain's core, far below the lowest levels of Omega's stronghold. That's not on any of our schematics, the general said, voice tight with suspicion. How do you know about this? Because it's why we're here, Orion replied simply. The 13 Vanguard wasn't just a military project. We were sent to investigate a signal, a beacon activated when Averon first entered our solar system. We've spent the last 18 months tracking similar artifacts across 3 star systems, learning about the Averon and their true purpose. Which is, Lyra prompted, they're not conquerors. They're archaeologists of a sort. Extremely violent, utterly ruthless archaeologists who believe they've found the key to godhood. Orion's expression darkened. The Averon worship what they call the Source Crystal, supposedly a fragment of the primordial energy that birthed the universe. According to their beliefs, more fragments exist scattered across the galaxy. One of those fragments is here beneath this mountain. And if they get it, General Hawthorne asked, then Earth's destruction becomes a footnote in a much larger catastrophe. One of the other warriors spoke up. A woman with close-cropped silver hair and eyes that seemed to shift color. The fragments contain unimaginable energy. If combined, they could potentially unmake reality as we understand it. The implications hung heavy in the air. This wasn't just about humanity's survival anymore, but something far more fundamental. We need to reach the chamber before they do, Orion stated. My team can hold back the warlord temporarily, but we'll need your forces to secure a path to the artifact. General Hawthorne studied the warrior for a long moment, decades of military suspicion warring with their desperate situation. Finally, he nodded. Captain Coleman, assemble your best squad. You'll accompany Commander Black to this chamber. He turned to his staff. Redirect all remaining combat units to defensive positions around the main entrance. We hold the line, whatever the cost. As the command center erupted into renewed activity, Lyra found herself face to face with Orion. "You knew this was here all along," she said, not a question, but an accusation. "You could have come earlier, before millions died." His expression remained impassive. "We were fighting our own battles, Captain, learning about the enemy, tracking the artifacts, developing countermeasures. This isn't the only front in this war. That's cold comfort to those we've lost." "I know." Something like regret flickered across his features. "But now we're here, and there's still a chance to save what remains." He extended his hand. "Are you with us?" After a heartbeat's hesitation, Lyra clasped his forearm in a warrior's grip. For Earth. The journey to the chamber took them through the deepest levels of Omega's stronghold and beyond, into natural caverns that predated human civilization. Lyra led a squad of her best soldiers, while Orion brought his 3 remaining warriors. The rest of the 13 Vanguard were engaged above, holding back the Averon assault to buy them time. As they descended, the rock formations changed, transitioning from natural geological structures to something clearly artificial. Smooth surfaces inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift when viewed directly. "Who built this place?" Lyra asked, running her gloved hand along a wall etched with flowing patterns. "We're not certain," Orion replied. "The artifacts date back millions of years. Whoever created them existed before our species had even evolved. And the Averon? How do they fit into this?" "They discovered one fragment centuries ago. It gave them technological advancement beyond anything they developed independently. They've been searching for the others ever since, believing that assembling all pieces will elevate them to divinity." Their conversation was interrupted by the facility-wide comm system. "All personnel, multiple breaches reported. Averon forces have penetrated to level 3. Heavy casualties reported in all sectors." Lyra's grip tightened on her weapon. Everyone they'd left behind was fighting and dying to give them this chance. "We need to move faster," she urged. The passage eventually opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness above. At its center stood a raised dais, and upon it, a crystal formation unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. Not quite solid, not quite energy, its surface constantly shifting between states of matter. The source fragment, Orion breathed, his usually controlled demeanor breaking momentarily. "It's more beautiful than the records described." As they approached the dais, the crystal's glow intensified, responding to their presence. Patterns of light danced across its surface, forming complex geometric structures that seemed to fold into impossible dimensions. "What do we do with it?" Lyra asked. "My armor contains a specialized containment field," Orion explained. "We'll secure the fragment and evacuate before the Averon can." A massive explosion shook the chamber, sending rocks cascading from the ceiling. Through the newly created breach poured Averon soldiers, dozens of them, led by a figure that stood apart from the others. Where the typical Averon warrior was a hybrid of organic and mechanical components, this being was something else entirely. Larger, more refined, with an aura of power that seemed to distort the very air around it. Its armor incorporated the same crystalline material as their ships, pulsing with energy that resonated with the fragment on the dais. The warlord, Orion confirmed, his weapons systems humming to life. "Hold the line." The battle erupted with ferocious intensity. The Averon forces surged forward, met by the combined firepower of Lyra's squad and Orion's warriors. In the confined space, the fighting was brutally close quarters, energy weapons and conventional firearms creating a deafening cacophony that echoed off the ancient walls. Lyra found herself fighting back-to-back with Sergeant Morales, their years of combat experience allowing them to coordinate without words. 2 Averon soldiers fell to their combined fire, but more kept coming. "There's too many," Morales shouted, ejecting an empty magazine and slamming in his last reserve. "We can't hold them." One of Orion's warriors, the silver-haired woman, activated some mechanism in her armor that released a pulse of energy, temporarily disabling the nearest Averon soldiers. "Get to the fragment," she called to Orion. "We'll cover you." Orion fought his way toward the dais, his advanced weapons carving a path through the enemy ranks. But the warlord, sensing his intention, moved with startling speed to intercept. Their collision was like watching two forces of nature meet. The warlord's crystalline weapons flashed against Orion's adaptive armor, each blow releasing shockwaves that cracked the chamber's ancient floor. Despite his enhanced abilities, Orion was clearly outmatched, the warlord's connection to the source fragment providing it with power beyond even the Vanguard's capabilities. A devastating strike sent Orion crashing against the dais, his armor breached in multiple places. The warlord advanced, chittering something in its alien language that somehow conveyed triumphant malice. Lyra made a split-second decision. Morales, Jenkins covering fire, everyone else with me. She charged toward the dais, firing continuously to draw the warlord's attention. The alien commander turned, regarding her with what might have been contempt, then raised its weapon. The blast caught Lyra square in the chest, her standard-issue armor providing almost no protection. The impact sent her tumbling across the chamber floor, pain blossoming through her torso. Through blurred vision, she saw the warlord turn back to Orion, preparing a killing blow. Then, incredibly, Private Jenkins was there, the youngest, most inexperienced member of her squad, throwing himself between Orion and the warlord. The alien's weapon discharged, vaporizing the young soldier instantly, but the momentary distraction was enough. Orion's armor reconfigured, drawing power from some hidden reserve. He lunged forward, driving an energy blade deep into the junction between the warlord's armor plates. The alien commander reeled backward, dark fluid seeping from a wound. The fragment! Orion shouted. Now! With monumental effort, Lyra pulled herself to her feet and staggered to the dais. The source fragment pulsed more intensely as she approached, its light almost blinding. She reached out, hesitating just short of touching its shifting surface. How do I? Just take it, Orion gasped, still grappling with the wounded but dangerous warlord. The containment protocols in my armor will activate automatically once it's in proximity. Steeling herself, Lyra grasped the fragment. The sensation defied description, neither hot nor cold, solid nor liquid, but something that seemed to resonate with her very atoms. She lifted it from its ancient resting place and lurched toward Orion. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The warlord let out a screech that threatened to rupture eardrums, its body convulsing as the fragment's proximity triggered some kind of reaction. The crystalline components of its armor began to resonate sympathetically, glowing with increasing intensity. Everyone out, Orion commanded, engaging the containment field in his armor. The fragment was drawn from Lyra's hands, encapsulated in a sphere of energy that attached to Orion's backplate. He's going critical. They retreated toward the chamber entrance, collecting their wounded as they went. Behind them, the warlord's form became a pillar of light, energy cascading off it in waves that disintegrated nearby Averon soldiers. Run! The explosion that followed collapsed the ancient chamber and a significant portion of Omega's stronghold above it. Only the exceptional protection of the Vanguard warrior's armor saved Lyra and her remaining soldiers from being crushed as they fled through the tunnels. They emerged into chaos. The battle for Omega's stronghold continued above, but with a noticeable difference. The Averon forces, bereft of their leader's guidance, were fighting with less coordination, making crucial tactical errors. The warlord served as their battlefield nexus, Orion explained as they made their way to the surface. With him gone, their hive mind military structure is compromised. The remaining Vanguard warriors had coordinated with human forces to exploit this weakness, pushing the invaders back from the facility. The Averon command ship, sensing the tide turning, was already beginning to ascend, abandoning its ground forces. By dawn, the battle was over. The Averon retreat had become a rout, their once unstoppable forces fragmented and vulnerable without their commander. Reports began filtering in from around the globe, similar scenarios playing out as the invaders' coordinated strategy collapsed. Lyra stood on Omega's stronghold's eastern wall, watching the sun rise over a battlefield littered with the dead of 3 species. Medical teams worked tirelessly, tending to the wounded. Engineers were already beginning repairs on the facility's critical systems. Orion joined her, the source fragment still secured in his armor's containment field. "It's not over," he said quietly. "This was just one fragment, one warlord. There are others out there, searching for the remaining pieces. But we've won a reprieve," Lyra replied. "Time to rebuild, to prepare." "Yes." He looked at the fragment, its glow visible even through the containment field. "And perhaps to understand what we've found. The energy in this artifact, properly harnessed, it could accelerate Earth's recovery, give us technologies to defend ourselves more effectively. Is that wise?" The Averon's obsession with these fragments nearly destroyed them. "The difference is intent," Orion said. "They sought power for domination. We need it for survival." General Hawthorne approached, his uniform tattered but his bearing still commanding. "The remaining Averon ships are leaving orbit. Long-range scanners show them setting course for the outer system." He nodded to the fragment. "I assume that's what they were after." "One piece of a larger puzzle," Orion confirmed. "But enough to have changed the course of this war. And now, what happens to it? To you and your warriors?" Orion considered the question. Of the original 13 Vanguard, only 7 remained. "We stay," he said finally. "The Vanguard was created to protect Earth, not just from the Averon, but from whatever else waits beyond our star. This fragment will be secured in a facility we're establishing, one with safeguards the Averon cannot penetrate." "And your warriors will help us rebuild?" Hawthorne asked, skepticism evident in his tone. "We'll do more than that," Orion replied. "We'll prepare you for what's coming. The Averon were just the first wave. There are other species out there who have detected these energy signatures, some worse than the Averon." Lyra looked between them, sensing the tension. Trust would not come easily after so much had been lost. "We start with what's in front of us," she said firmly. "Reclaiming our world, burying our dead, healing our wounded. One step at a time." Orion nodded, his expression softening slightly. "Agreed, Captain Coleman." 3 days later, as recovery operations continued around Omega Stronghold, Lyra found herself standing at a makeshift memorial. Rows of identification tags hung from simple frames, thousands of them representing those who had fallen in the final battle. Among them was Private Jenkins' tag, the metal still shiny and new compared to the weather tags of veterans. "He saved my life," came Orion's voice as he approached. His armor was now repaired, the advanced material once again appearing seamless and impenetrable. A soldier with no enhancements, no special training beyond standard military protocol, threw himself between me and certain death. "That was Jenkins," Lyra said softly. "Always trying to live up to the heroes and the stories he'd heard. He succeeded." Orion reached out, gently touching the tag. "In all our enhancements and modifications, sometimes I fear the Vanguard has lost something essential. That raw human courage that comes not from confidence in superior abilities, but from the willingness to sacrifice despite one's limitations." They stood in silence for a moment, honoring the dead. In the distance, transport ships were arriving with supplies and reinforcement from hidden bases that had survived the invasion. The first tentative steps toward rebuilding. "I've been reassigned," Lyra said eventually. "General Hawthorne wants me to lead a special liaison unit between conventional forces and the Vanguard. Apparently, my unique perspective makes me suitable. Having seen both our capabilities and our limitations." Something like that. She turned to face him fully. "The truth is, we need each other. Your warriors have the technology and power, but we have the numbers and the understanding of Earth's terrain. Neither of us can rebuild alone." Orion nodded. "The Vanguard was never meant to be separate from humanity. We were created to be its shield." He gestured toward the horizon, where the sun was setting over a landscape still scarred by war, but no longer burning. "What comes next will require all of us." "And the fragment? What do your people plan to do with it?" "Study it carefully. There's a reason these artifacts were scattered across the galaxy rather than destroyed. They contain knowledge as well as power, possibly the history of whoever created them and why. Understanding that might be as important as harnessing their energy. A communication alert interrupted them. Sergeant Morales requesting Lyra's presence at the command center. New satellite data was coming in, showing Avron activity in the outer system. They're regrouping, Lyra surmised. Yes, without their warlord, they'll be more cautious, but they won't abandon their quest. Orion's expression hardened. We've won a battle, Captain Coleman, but the war continues beyond our atmosphere. Then we'd better get to work. She touched the memorial once more, a final goodbye to those they'd lost, then turned toward the command center. Earth has a second chance. Let's make it count. As they walked together, the enhanced warrior and the battle-hardened captain, they represented something new. A partnership forged in Earth's darkest hour, now tasked with building its brightest future. Behind them, the memorial tags clinked softly in the evening breeze, a reminder of the cost paid for this. Opportunity. Above, the first stars became visible in the twilight sky. Somewhere among them, the Avron retreated to lick their wounds and plan their return. But for now, at least, Earth had breathing room. Time to recover, to plan, to prepare. The final hour had been delayed, not canceled. But humanity, alongside its deadliest warriors, would be ready when it came again. Omega's stronghold became the center of Earth's reconstruction efforts. Within weeks, salvaged Avron technology was being reverse-engineered, combined with Vanguard advancements to create new defensive systems. Satellite networks were restored, communications re-established between surviving population centers. The first tentative steps toward rebuilding global civilization. Lyra's liaison unit expanded rapidly, integrating conventional military personnel with Vanguard operatives. The initial distrust gradually gave way to mutual respect as they trained together, shared knowledge, and prepared for the inevitable return of the enemy. The source fragment remained under constant study, its containment facility buried deep beneath Omega's stronghold with security protocols designed by the Vanguard themselves. Each day brought new discoveries about its properties, how it interacted with various materials, how it responded to different energy frequencies, how it seemed to possess a form of awareness unlike anything in human scientific understanding. 6 weeks after the battle, Lyra found herself in a briefing room with Orion and General Hawthorne, reviewing the latest intelligence. The Avron fleet has withdrawn to the Kuiper Belt, Hawthorne reported, highlighting a region on the holographic display. They appear to be conducting repairs while maintaining minimal surveillance of Earth. They're waiting for reinforcements, Orion stated. Standard Avron protocol after losing a warlord. The hierarchy must be re-established before they commit to another full-scale assault. How long? Lyra asked. Based on their communication patterns, 3 months, perhaps 4. Orion manipulated the display, zooming out to show the entire solar system. But they're not our only concern. We've detected anomalous energy signatures near Jupiter's orbit, similar to Vanguard jump points, but utilizing different quantum frequencies. Another species? Hawthorne asked, alarmed. Possibly. Or it could be a natural phenomenon our sensors are misinterpreting. Orion's expression remained neutral, but Lyra had learned to read the subtle tensions in his posture. He was concerned. We should dispatch a reconnaissance team, she suggested. A small force, minimal engagement profile, just enough to identify what we're dealing with. Hawthorne nodded slowly. I'll authorize the mission. Captain Coleman, you'll lead the human contingent. Commander Black, I assume you'll want to select the Vanguard operatives personally. Yes, we'll need specialists in deep space operations. Orion turned to Lyra. We deploy in 48 hours. I suggest your team prepare for extended vacuum conditions. As they exited the briefing, Sergeant Morales fell in a step beside Lyra. His face had healed from the battle, but a new scar crossed his cheek, a permanent reminder of how close they'd come to extinction. Reconnaissance to Jupiter? He questioned. Either we're becoming more confident or more desperate. Both, probably, Lyra replied. Select 3 of our best for the mission. Environmental specialists, preferably with void training. Already have them in mind. Morales hesitated. Captain, permission to speak freely? Always, Sergeant. These Vanguard warriors, I respect what they did for us, what they're continuing to do. But sometimes I get the feeling they're not telling us everything. About the fragments, about what's out there. He gestured vaguely upward, like they're preparing us, but only giving us pieces of the full picture. Lyra had harbored similar suspicions. Despite the growing cooperation, the Vanguard maintained certain protocols, certain knowledge, that they seemed reluctant to share completely. Trust takes time, Morales. Especially after everything that's happened. She paused at a viewport, gazing out at the recovery operations visible across the valley. For now, we need them, and they need us. The rest will sort itself out. I hope you're right. Morales nodded respectfully. I'll have the team ready by 0600 tomorrow. As he departed, Lyra continued to watch the activity below. Earth was healing, slowly but surely. Cities were being reclaimed, infrastructure restored. People were beginning to look up from mere survival towards something resembling a future again. A future that now included the stars, whether they wanted it or not. The Averon invasion had forced humanity to confront the reality that they were not alone in the universe, and that much of what waited beyond their atmosphere was hostile. But it had also brought the Vanguard, Earth's deadliest warriors returning at its darkest hour. Was it providence? Coincidence? Or something more calculated? Lyra wasn't sure, but as she prepared for their mission to Jupiter, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the threshold of something far larger than a simple war of survival. The fragment was just one piece, the Averon just one enemy, and humanity's final hour, though delayed, was still approaching on the cosmic horizon. But this time, they would meet it prepared, united, and with their own champions at their side. The deadliest warriors had returned home, and Earth would never be the same again.